in a 3D game.
Exactly.
But for a 2D game, there's a much easier, more optimized way.
Yes. So let me show you the differences. Like, I'm going to put it here to a transparent so we see the object here. What we're going to do, we're going to duplicate this object for the moment. And what we're going to say, instead of a texture, we're going to put that to a sprite.
And that's, you're changing the actual asset in your assets folder from a texture to a sprite.
Exactly. So this is an asset that we can use over and over. It's in our project folder. This is actually our hierarchy. The hierarchy is then what's actually in our scene, in our game, okay, on level based.
What instances are currently in the scene?
Exactly. It's a really good way to put it. So here I'm going to put it to a sprite. Okay, and I'm going to press apply. And I'm going to take that object and I drag it in here. It's a bit bigger. We can scale it easily. But it's a huge difference. Okay, and let's look at that. Okay, this is a sprite, and this is done with a mesh render, and this is done with a sprite render. Okay, what the difference is, and I'm going to show you here when we go to our overdraw. Okay, there we see the differences. So
what exactly are we looking at here?
Okay, so overdraw is basically the amount of pixels that are drawn on the screen or on top of each other. Okay, what we see in order to draw this object, we have to actually draw all those pixels here.
The two triangles form a quad 3D object.
But we putting this all on the GPU to render all those pixels here. In this, we're only rendering actually the object itself.
Much more optimized then.
Way more optimized. And this is actually done because this object, when we go here to wireframe, so here we have the wireframe for this. It covers all the area here. So we're rendering actually all this alpha channel here. And here not. We remove that. We only keep the mesh for that.
And it's all handled for you automatically. You just drag and drop the sprite into the scene. You're good to go.
Nothing to do. Just drag and drop, and it all gets optimized for you.
Excellent. And if you had done 2D as your default settings when you create the project, all the image files that you drag into your assets folder will automatically be set to sprites.
Exactly. So if I go here now I'm going to delete this all. I don't need this. So I'm going to go here to my project settings in the editor. And we're going to change that to 2D. Okay. What happens now is when I import...
Can you show us where that menu was again? Just
here.
Emphasize it. It's under
Edit,
Project Settings,
and the editor. So it's how the behavior of our editor. That's what we want to change. Okay. And what we're going to do is now we're going to import all that artwork in one shot. So that's really cool. You don't have to drag and drop one in there.
Just grab a whole folder.
I take hold the folder, drag in the assets folder, and nicely they get imported all of them and automatically convert to a sprite.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Very handy.
So let's give it a second here. Okay. And the cool thing is, even when it's a sprite, you can always change it afterwards to a texture. You can duplicate it. You can use for multi-purchases. So, and there we have all our images now. So look, we have the environments here. So let's start to create an environment for our game here. Okay. And I'm going to take here my environment and drag it in here. Okay. We don't have to have wireframe. Just going to see the texture mode. So what we see is here. This viewport is my scene where I'm going to actually make my game. Okay. This is the viewport to my game. That's the final result we see in the game itself. So I'm going to place this object here. Yeah. And let's take here the beginning. Okay. Let's take this object, drag it in here. Okay. And let's take this object here. That's the foreground. Okay. So what we see is the object should be inverted, and that's really cool. You can actually just do -1 here.
So you're changing the scale and the transform.
Yeah. So instead of in this way, I want to actually in this way. So I do it -1.
And exactly -1 would be exactly mirrored.
Yeah. But actually, you can do it faster. You can actually select all the objects here in the scene and scale them all. There's no transformation. So we're going to do it here in here, but we can do it multi-select here and then put it all to
in your scene view.
Yeah, -1, and that's done here now. So and we can place it nicely, snap it to there, place it there. Okay, take this object and we're going to place it here nicely. So we have already created that beginning aspect. Okay, what I start to see is here, look here in the game, it looks incorrect. It's rendering this object in front of there.
Because the game view is what your camera is seeing. The scene view is just your editing view.
Yeah. So it could be more dramatic if I start to, like say, I'm going to go here to my character and I take one of my characters here. In here. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to put in the scene here. So it's flying on here on top, but here in the game, It doesn't know what's rendering in the front or in the back. So why is that? Well, when I look here at my 2D viewport, everything is actually
all
flat.
on the same plane.
Yeah. So I could move things forward, but I don't want to do that because everything was designed as flat. And if I bring things forward, it could be closer or far. I just want everything nicely flat. So what we can do for that is very simple. I'm going to show you what we're going to do. We can go to, let's going to keep our character here for the moment. Okay. We can actually, like in Photoshop, create layers. Edit, project settings, and here tags and layers. Tags and layers. Yeah. So what we see is here sorting layers. You're going to open
There's a lot of different kinds of layers in Unity. So we're talking about the sorting layer specifically.
Yeah.
And the sorting layer just deals with sprites, right?
Yeah. It's very good you pointed out. The layers is actually, this one is for the scripting part, or we can maybe see later if I have much more time, but I'm pretty sure the team members will cover it over the next 2 days.
We're not going to worry about it for now.
No. We have here the sorting layers. Okay, and what we're going to do, we're going to add here 2 layers. We can maybe call it here the level itself. And then here like the foreground, that could be our character. Okay. So look here, our character. We're going to select our character now and say, like, actually when you render in the layer, you're going to render in the foreground. And the other objects, you can multi-select them and say actually in the layer level. So this shows already our character nicely being in the front of this.
So it's going to render all of the sprites that are in the background layer, and then it will render all of the sprites in the foreground layer, which will then mean that the foreground layer is drawn last, and thus it's on top of everything.
Correct. So you can, when we go back here to our tags and layers, what we see is here, the foreground layer is layer 2, is rendered on top of the layer level.
And you can drag those around too. If you have a bunch of layers, you want to sort them more specifically.
This is actually something I want to point out. By default, if you create something, it will be created in a default layer. So I don't want that. Because in the default layer, it will show it always in the background.
Behind the level.
Yes, exactly. So what I'm going to do, it's just going to drag and drop it in the foreground. So when we import something new, it will always put in the foreground so we can see it. We don't have to worry where it is, the object. Now, when we look at this object, maybe this object should be in front of our character, so we can create another layer, foreground. So we're going to go to our editor. I'm sorry, to the tags and layers. Oh, I'm going to go to the correct menu. Open this and let's rename this character here.
So we're going to have 4 layers this time. We'll have level, character, default, and now
foreground. Yeah. So what I'm going to put my character in the layer character here. Okay. And then this one in the foreground.
So that way the foreground is in front of the character.
Yeah. So now look nicely, my character will come when it comes in the scene.
It's in between.
In between. Exactly. There's one problem we have though. Look, I'm going to show you here. I'm going to take one of the other environment objects. Let's say this object. We're going to drag it in here. We also do -1. Okay. And place it here. Okay.
It's by default on the default layer, which is above the character layer.
So what we're going to do is just put it in the level 1. Okay. But what now is when we put it over there, sometimes we don't know if it should be nice in front a little bit or in the background. And especially here with this object also, this is sometimes, you see now, it's rendering in the back, it's rendering in the front. I want to specify that. Okay. But what I don't want to do is create like tons of layers, like level 1, level 2, level 4. It will be too much to manage that.
Yeah, that'd be a crazy amount of layers.
So it's really simple in Unity what I did. A very smart trick here. Look here. If I select this object here, okay, what we have here is in the sorting layer, it's set to 0. So in the layer itself, we can sort it again. So it's set to 0. If I'm going to take this one and I'm going to say, well, I'm going to put it to 1 up. Press enter.
Is it just an integer value?
Yeah, it's individual. Yes.
Whole numbers.
Yeah. So now look, it nicely renders always on top of that.
So it always renders 1s on top of 0s.
Yeah. So the higher the number, the closer to the camera basically rendered. But it will stay in that layer. So this foreground layer will always render on top of that. So in that way we can easily create here nice structured levels. And let's add a little bit more elements to it. We're going to go here to our environment. And let's say, look, I'm going to take another object here. Maybe this one again. Okay, I'm going to scale it -1. I'm doing everything. Okay, let's select this one. -1. Okay, nice. We're gonna place it here. Okay, and one of the artists we used, Curtis, drag and drop this object in here, or I think this object, so we can do a little bit differences in there. Place this. Delete this one. Select this one, and we're gonna place it there. And nicely, we can start.
Cover up that window.
Yeah. So now what we're going to do, we're going to select multiple objects here. So we're going to select this one, and this one, and this one.
Make sure they're all in the level sorting layer.
Yeah, that's really good. So what we do here, we're going to put it to level, and take this object and put it 1 up again also. So nicely, it's always on top of rendering there.
So it's always going to be on top of things that are rendered at 0.
Yeah. So what we can do is duplicate. You can multi-select also in Unity and duplicate that and place it here.
Look at that, we extend the corridor very easily.
Yeah, and I'm gonna place it here. And that's how we start to create our level here. Simple, okay. Always save. I'm gonna save my scene, and I'm gonna call it to...
Yes, always good to remember to save.
Yeah, software has never crashed.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we have here our level now created. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create like one little button so I can select all the objects in one shot, so I don't have to multi-select it always. So we're going to create here an empty object. Okay, place it here.
This is a brand new game object. It appears in the hierarchy.
Yeah, so it's an empty object. It just has a transform on it. Okay. What we're going to do, we're going to select all those objects from the environment and drag it, just like a Windows Explorer, in that object. So it's when I select this object, I can select it in all.
So when you move the parent game object, it moves all of the children, and thus keeps the level piece together.
Well, the problem is that I don't see that object. It's hard to find it in the scene if I want to select it. So we're going to create a simple button for that. And how you do that is here. There's you have this cube here. Okay. When I click on that cube, I can create a button for it. Let's say here a blue button. And now we can call it...
Now is that going to appear in my game, that blue button?
That's a very good question. No, that's the real beauty. So it appears here. And when I move that object, you will never see it in the game itself. You can make it visible by activating the gizmos here.
So just for debugging purposes.
Debugging, yeah, exactly. So now we're going to place it here. Okay, my camera. Okay, you can place it here in the beginning a little bit. We're going to change that to ortho. So right now it's perspective. We can put it to ortho. And then we can change the size.
So perspective camera is you're seeing from a 3-dimensional point of view. So objects that are farther away will seem farther away than objects that are closer to the camera, whereas orthographic kind of removes that entire z-axis and smashes everything down flat.
Yeah, and because we are making a 2D game, we really want everything flat, because in Photoshop our artist designed it and totally flat. So what we want to do is we want to keep that flatness there. Okay, so that's why I changed my camera. You can nicely see that here when I go to a 3D viewport. This is the camera in 2D. If I change the camera to perspective, it's like you see there's perspective eye here. You put it back to ortho, and there we have it. Okay, we're going to go back to 2D. And there we have nicely our level already created with our the beginning of our character. Okay, and I don't need my character for the moment. We're going to delete that. Okay. So this is the beginning of our level. But let's put the props in there that we might be able to pick up. So I have somewhere a fuel can here. Okay, and let me go here to I have here a fuel can here. Okay, but what I see right away, and I'm going to delete this for the moment because I don't need those objects here. Okay, this is really interesting now. What we see is the artist create a sequence of images, and when I play them fast, actually I get the impression
that it's spinning.
If I take one image in there and I place it here, and I'm gonna press play, nothing will happen. It's just
a single frame of that animation.
Yeah. So what we want to do is we want to rotate that. We want to have that same animation. We want to have that sequence of images. So how can we do that? This is fantastic done. It's mind-blowing, I found. You select the first one, and you select the last one, and you drag and drop all those images in one shot here. And notice, is that an animation? It's actually a sequence of playing those images. Yeah, I can say fuel can rotation.
So it automatically generates an animation, which is why it's prompting you to save.
Yeah. So maybe I can make it a little bit bigger so we can basically better see it on the screen. Okay. And when I press no play, what we see is this object is nicely...
Now it's spinning with all the images.
Yeah. How can I see that? Look here, I can select an object. and I can go to the Windows animation here. Window, animation, you get the window here. And I can now scrub in the timeline here. So we see nicely the animation. When I open this here.
Each of those little diamonds represent one frame of the animation.
Yeah, this is actually called a keyframe, and each of those keyframes represents one of those images. And here we have the sample rate, the speed. I can change that if I want to rotate faster. I can put it to 24. So when I press play, it runs much faster. So pretty cool to have this already.
Very handy.
Yeah. Okay, so we have one of the collectible objects in place there. Let's put the laser tags in there. Okay, let's go to the obstacles, and we should have somewhere here the laser. Okay, we'll delete those objects later on. We're going to come to that, what it all means. So I'm going to select again. It's here. We get 1, 2, 3, 4 images. I select them all, drag and drop that into my scene. Okay, and I'm going to call it my laser. Okay, there it is. I can maybe place it here. We can also scale it -1. Okay, let's frame to that object so we have it there. Can put the laser there. What we're going to do, we're going to duplicate it, bring it down.
So now we got 2 laser objects.
Yeah. So we cannot sneak under it. Okay.
And you put the second laser object as a child of the first one, so that when you move the first one, they move together.
Yeah, so I don't have to multi-select, or I don't have to separate select them, move them around. I can do it in one shot. Okay. So when I press play now, what we're going to see is we see the lasers here, and we see the collectible object here.
Awesome.
Okay.
We already got some animation in the game.
Exactly. It's really easy and fun. So this is our first part. What we want to do is now actually duplicate that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because now we can select here the environment, and I don't need the 2 first objects here, the intro. So this is the object I want to duplicate over time in my scene. Mm-hmm. I'm going to make those 2 objects, the collectible, the fuel can, a child of that level, and the laser too.
So there's always going to be a fuel can and lasers in every segment of this level we're generating on the fly.
And what we're going to do is on the fly then say, when we enter one of those prefabs here, activate or deactivate the can, or activate the laser. So we always have, it's always different. It's never the same. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we have this game object here, and save this. And what we're going to do is we're going to call that like maybe a prefab 1 or something. Prefab 1. And we can now duplicate this. Okay. And I call it prefab 2. Okay. And I can move it to here. See? So now I have 2 objects, and I can pull them, so I can later on move one of the objects. But let's first start with the character here. Okay. So I'm going to go to my character here, and I'm going to make my first animation just like I did with my fuel can. I can go here to the run animation. Okay. And
you're going to select all of the images as part of the run.
Yeah. So we have here run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 13. I'm going to select them. First and last one. Mm-hmm. We're going to drag and drop it into our scene here. Okay. And again, it's going to ask for an animation. And I'm going to call it run. Okay. And I'm going to go here to my run character. What we see here, it creates a file run and an animator. Okay, I'm going to quickly explain what it actually is. Okay, so when I press play, what we see is here we see the animation playing. Okay, in the animation that has created a file run, and it plays those animation file. It plays those sequence of images. With my character selected here, I'm going to go here. What we see is here we see the animator. The animator defines which animation will be playing at what time. Okay, so when I select that animator and I go to the animator, here now we nicely see it, and it's playing the run animation. It's visual stating which animation is playing. When I double click on that, we see the animation here run, and it's click here run.
It's all automatically generated for us when we drag the run in.
Yeah, nothing to do. So it's super easy. And orange means that is the default animation that will be playing when we start the game. That's
when it'll start first.
Yeah. So look here now, when I press play, I see my character running, okay? But it's not moving forward, there's no physics applied to that.
No, it's simply just animated in that way.
So let's start with that. What we're gonna do is select our character here, okay? I can rename this here. I'm gonna call it character. Okay, it's easy to find that in my game. And what I want to do is I want to add some gravity to it, because later on I want to jump and add some force up to it, and then we're going to land down.
So we're going to have to code our own physics engine now?
No.
Oh, Unity makes that easy?
That Unity makes it easy. There's a box 2D fully included for it, and just apply to it, and that's it. We made it easy.
Awesome.
So look here, how we do that actually. Let me show you here. Okay, we have our character. I'm going to add a component. We go to physics. We have to watch out here. We have physics and physics 2D. Okay, physics 2D is when you're really going to make for 2D games, and physics is the physics for more 3D games. Of course, you can combine that in games. But I'm going to use here the 2D physics, and I'm going to add a rigid body 2D. Just like gravity. So look, when I look at my game here, and I press play now, what's going to happen is our character falls down forever. Okay, I can show you that here. It's really fun. Okay, when I zoom out here, press play, our character falls down.
Because he has gravity, but there's nothing for him to hit yet, because nothing else has any gravity or physics.
Yes. So what we're going to do is, look here, our character, or here, we can select our level here. Okay. Delete the other prefab, I don't need it actually yet. So what we can do, we're going to add here a little physics to it. So add physics 2D. We don't have to add gravity. The object will stand still. We're going to add a collider to it. So look here, I can do here an edge collider. Okay. Or I should add actually something that I can see, because it's a little dot actually. So I can actually, physics 2D, let's add here a box collider to it. But it's just, it's very small here. You see it's here? Because it's
around the game object, the empty one that we made.
Yeah. So what we can do is hold on shift, or we can here the size here, move it bigger.
Scale it up in its X and Y.
Yeah, so we can then nicely make it the size, okay, like this. And let's put the center a little bit down, so we're going to place it nicely here. So what we see is here on the floor. So when I press play, our character falls down, but it doesn't hit it with it. Why is that? Our character needs also a collider. It's not just the floor. Both have to collide against each other.
Yes, physics, but he's not colliding with anything because he doesn't have the code for collision.
Yeah. So we're going to select here my character. I'm going to add a component, physics 2D, and I'm going to add a box collider to it. Let's also make it a bit smaller. So the size, we're going to make it smaller here. And the Y too.
So making the collision box around the character a bit tighter.
Yeah. So look, now when I press play, what we're going to see is the character nicely falls down and hits the floor.
Excellent.
Okay, super simple.
That's exactly what we wanted.
Yeah. The next step, what we want to do is actually move that character forward. Okay, how are we going to do that? Also, we're going to do that actually through a script. Okay, look here. You're going to have to import some scripts. You can create scripts really simple. I here create Java or C#. This class will be mainly using C#. I will use one JavaScript to show the possibility of that. Okay.
It's also worth noting that you can mix and match. You can have some objects with JavaScripts and some objects with C# scripts.
You can mix and match, but they cannot communicate with each other. Yeah.
They be black boxes to each other.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to take here some scripts, and I'm going to drag and drop, hold the folder in there, so I don't have to one by one import each script. Yeah.
Same way we imported the assets earlier, just drag and drop.
Makes it
it's pretty easy to do.
Okay. Just to make sure. Okay, so what we're going to do is here take the script character final we can actually use. Okay, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to take that script and open this here, and open here with Mono. Okay, you can also do it with C#. Okay.
In Visual Studio.
Yeah.
It's a C# script, but you can open either one.
Okay. And okay, let me maybe explain it here. Okay, and close the window for the moment.
Wow, it's taking a bit to load.
Yeah.
So this is a script you wrote ahead of time.
Yeah, this is a script I wrote ahead of time. Okay, just let's take a bit time here.
So tell us what the script's supposed to be doing.
The script is the character is moving forward basically. It's just physics that we're going to apply in the Y and the X-axis, so the character can actually move forward.
Applying a vertical force, a force going in the horizontal, I should say, in the X.
Yeah, so I'm just going to try to work on it here for a second. Okay. And
get that script open.
Yeah.
And a script is just a component that you can add to any object, just like we add the animator component or the box 2D physics component. You just attach it to an object. And so you can attach multiple scripts if you want as well.
Yeah. So look here, I'm going to explain the script from here. What we're going to do is basically, the first thing is on collision enter 2D. So I'm going to take that script and I'm going to apply it to our character.
And that's a function that's going to be triggered when a collision happens. It's built into Unity. It will trigger that function when the box 2D colliders.
So what we're going to do the moment it hits the ground, I'm going to say it's grounded. Because
that's just a boolean that you're setting.
Yeah, because later on, what I want to do is here. This is really interesting. We use here a function update. A function update runs every frame. Okay, and we have a function fixed update here. Why the difference is a function update runs every frame. Fixed update runs a certain interval that we can set, and that's where we're going to use our runs our physics in, because it's really more computing, and that's why we're going to do it on a fixed update. Function update, okay, is here when I press the fire button, and that's now becomes really interesting, because this is something that works multi-platform, cross-platform. If I'm going to put that on my Windows phone, when I touch the screen,
it's going to trigger the Fire 1 event.
Fire 1 event. If I do it on my Xbox One, it's exactly the same. My Fire 1 button will trigger this. Okay, so it makes it super easy.
So that's an internal Unity command, Fire 1, as a label for your input.
So, and this here, you can find it here. You can go to Edit, and you can go to your input settings. Okay, and here you can say Fire 1 is actually my left control. Okay, but Fire 1 I have it declared also here as my joystick button 0, the same as my when on Windows Phone when I touch the screen. So you can add there your own inputs too.
So it automatically will do a touch input then on touch devices.
Correct.
Excellent.
Super easy. So you don't, for multi-platform, I want to make an Xbox One game, and
that's great. You don't have to have all these if statements of if I this control on that platform, this control on that platform. You can kind of have these tags that will work cross-platform, so you don't have to code once.
Yeah. So again, here on the collision enter 2D, why we say here ground is equal true actually first, is I want to be sure when that I only jump when my character's on the ground. And here as I do when I press the fire button, and if I'm on the ground, okay, then I can jump. Otherwise I cannot jump. Okay. And then the fixed update, when jump is true, what we here say is jump is true, we will add a force to it. Okay, a jump force. Now I didn't say like 10 meters or 50 meters. Or yards. I declared outside here.
There's a public variable.
As a public variable as 10. Okay. And what is the benefit of that? I'm going to show you here. I'm going to take that script and I'm going to drag and drop it on my character. Okay. That script is now applied to here, and I see a jump force of 10.
So automatically it sees all of the public variables, and it shows it to you in the editor so that you can tweak it. So having that jump force of 10, you're like, well, I want them to jump a little bit higher. I can set it to 15 in the editor. I don't have to actually go into the code and tweak it. Yeah,
this is one of the, I think, the strengths of Unity. The artists and the programmers and designers can all work together, thanks to exposed variables. As you can see here on our screen, here we have the jump force. Now I can actually nicely slide this, okay? And I can then tweak that. So press play, and we're going to click here, and we're going to jump. We see our character is jumping pretty high, so I can maybe put it to 8. Press play, okay, and then jump. And jump high enough. So I'm going to put my character a little bit lower, so it doesn't fall down in the beginning. Press play, the game starts, my character is running, click, and I jump.
Awesome.
Okay. So I'm going to put my character here nicely behind the screens, okay, and we're going to put that in the layer character, so that our character nicely will come.
As we did before.
Yeah. So in the game, press play, and there we have already the character running and jumping over the objects.
Awesome.
Super simple. But what we want to do is also, we want to have the correct animation playing, the jump animation. So let's go to the character here. And we go to the animator here, and we have the run. We want to add a jump animation to it. Okay. So I can go to my scene here, and I can go to my art assets for my character here, and select all my images of jumping, and drag and drop them in, just as done before. Okay.
Now, do we want a second jumping character in the scene?
We're going to delete that, actually.
Yeah, so we just want the one object, but the easiest way to make an animation is to simply just drag the images into the hierarchy, because it'll automatically give you that prompt, you save the animation file, and then you're done. And you can just remove that extra jump character you created.
Yeah. So look here, I can show you again. And drag it in here. I can call it jump. You can overwrite this.